Captain Kangday stood in the command center and watched the screens with cold eyes. 12 red dots moved closer to Vec Prime. 12 warships. All of them belonged to the Ravagers, the most feared pirates in this part of space. His colony had 3 defense platforms and 1 old frigate. It was like bringing a knife to a gunfight. "They'll be here in 20 minutes, said Hana Kim from her station. The young engineer's hands moved across the controls, checking the shield generators for the 3rd time. "Shields are at full power, but they won't last long against that many ships." Ambassador Thelvas, a tall Centaurian with blue skin and 4 arms, called an emergency meeting. All the species leaders gathered in the council room. There were krill warriors with their insect-like bodies, Centaurians with their diplomatic minds, and representatives from 10 other species. Kangday represented the humans. "We must surrender," Thelvas said. His voice was calm, but his hands shook. "We cannot fight 12 warships. If we surrender now, most of us will survive." Commander Vrex, the krill warrior leader, clicked his mandibles. "The Ravagers will take us as slaves." "Is that survival?" "Better than death," another representative said. Kangday stood up. "No." Everyone looked at him. The human captain was not tall, but something in his eyes made others listen. "Humanity doesn't negotiate with slavers," he said. "We've learned that lesson the hard way. Many times in our history. Give them an inch, and they take everything." "We fight. You're 200 humans against their thousands," Thelvas said. "Be reasonable." "Reasonable died when they decided to attack a peaceful colony," Kangday replied. "My people vote no. We will not surrender." The vote happened anyway. 11 species voted to surrender. Only the humans voted to fight. Dr. Yuna Park found Kangday after the meeting. She was a scientist who studied alien plants and animals. Not a soldier. But she had the same fire in her eyes that he did. "What's the plan?" she asked. "We hold the central district," Kangday said. "Let the others surrender if they want. But the human quarter doesn't give up." The Ravager fleet arrived exactly on time. Their ships were ugly things, covered in spikes and weapons. They didn't bother talking. They just started shooting. The defense platforms lasted 5 minutes. The frigate lasted 10, taking 1 Ravager ship with it before exploding. Kangday watched good people die on those stations and said a silent prayer. Then the bombardment began. Plasma bolts rained down on the colony's shields. Hana Kim worked frantically at her station, routing power from every system she could find. The lights dimmed throughout the colony. Life support dropped to minimum. Everything went to the shields. "We can hold for maybe 6 hours, she said. "After that, the generators will burn out." Kangday nodded. 6 hours. He'd worked with less. The Ravager ground forces landed outside the shield perimeter. Thousands of them, carrying weapons that could tear through metal. They marched toward the colony in organized groups. Commander Vrex and his krill warriors met them at the outer defensive line. The krill were good fighters, born for war. But they were outnumbered 10 to 1. They fell back, fighting every step, leaving bodies behind. Other species began surrendering. They walked out with white flags, hoping for mercy. The Ravagers put them in chains and laughed. Kangday saw it happen and felt his jaw tighten. "Get everyone who wants to fight to the central district," he ordered. "Humans, krill, anyone with the guts to stand up." About 500 beings gathered there. 200 humans, 100 krill warriors, and a mix of others who decided slavery was worse than death. They had rifles, pistols, and mining equipment turned into weapons. The Ravagers pushed forward. Their leader, a massive creature with red scales and too many teeth, broadcast a message to the colony. "Your shields will fail. Your fighters will die. Surrender now, and we will be merciful." Kangday took the microphone. "You want mercy? Try asking the people you've already chained. We're humans. We don't know how to quit." The Ravagers laughed and attacked harder. 3 hours passed. The shields flickered. Hana worked miracles keeping them running. But miracles had limits. The generators were overheating. Warning lights flashed red across every screen. Commander Vrex's forces pulled back to the central square. They'd lost half their warriors. The Krill commander was wounded, green blood dripping from cuts on his armor. But he still fought. "This is a good death," Vrek said to Kang Day. "Better than I expected. Nobody's dying today if I can help it," Kang Day replied. But he knew the truth. They had maybe an hour left. The Ravagers would break through, and it would be over. Still, the humans checked their weapons and prepared to sell their lives dearly. That was the human way. Dr. Una Park worked in the medical station, treating wounded fighters. She wasn't trained for this, but she learned fast. Her hands were steady as she bandaged a Krill warrior's wounds. Kang Day made one last desperate move. He opened the human emergency channel, the one that connected to every human ship and station within range. He knew the nearest human military base was weeks away, but he had to try. "This is Captain Kang Day at Vec Prime Colony," he said into the transmitter. "We are under attack by Ravager forces. 12 warships, thousands of ground troops. We are surrounded and outgunned. If anyone can hear this, we need help. If nobody can help, then let Earth know we didn't surrender. We fought to the last." Kang Day out. He didn't expect an answer. Space was big, and the human military was spread thin. They were alone. But 3 minutes later, the communicator crackled to life. "Vec Prime, this is Strike Commander Jin Woo. Hold your position. Strike squads en route. ETA, 28 minutes. Do not surrender. We're coming for you." Kang Day stared at the communicator. 28 minutes? The nearest base was weeks away. It was impossible. Hana looked up from her station, hope breaking through her exhausted expression. "Did they just say 28 minutes? That's what they said," Kang Day replied. He grabbed the microphone. "All defenders, listen up. Human military is inbound. We hold for 30 minutes. Can you do that?" Commander Vrex laughed, a clicking, chittering sound. "For 30 minutes? Human, we will hold for 30 hours if needed." The word spread through the defenders. Help was coming. They just had to survive long enough to see it. The Ravagers pressed their attack, sensing weakness. The shields were failing. The generators screamed in protest. But the defenders fought with new strength, new hope. 28 minutes. It seemed like forever, and no time at all. The human carrier times, Soul's Fury times cut through space like a knife. Major Nari Huang stood on the bridge, watching the countdown timer. 26 minutes until they reached Vec Prime. 26 minutes to save 3,000 lives. "How did we get here so fast?" asked a young officer. "We were running training exercises 2 systems over," Nari said. "When the distress call came through, I made a command decision. We took a shortcut through an unstable slipspace corridor." The officer's eyes widened. "That could have torn us apart." "Could have, didn't." Nari's voice was cold steel. "Besides, those are our people down there. We don't leave humans behind." Below deck, Strike Commander Jin Woo gathered his teams. 4 strike squads, 15 operators each, 60 of the most dangerous humans in the galaxy. They wore black armor, covered in weapons and equipment. Each one had trained for years to earn their place. Jin Woo was in his 40s, scarred from a dozen battles, with cybernetic enhancements that made him faster and stronger than normal humans. But it wasn't the enhancements that made him dangerous. It was his mind. "Listen up," he said to his teams. "Vec Prime is surrounded by Ravagers, 12 warships in orbit, maybe 5,000 ground troops. The colonists are holding the central district, but their shields are failing." Lieutenant Sora Han grinned. She was young and wild, with a reputation for creative destruction. "Only 5,000? Seems fair. We go in hard and fast," Jin Woo continued. "Alpha Squad takes the north sector. Beta takes east. Gamma takes south. Delta, you're with me on the west approach. Our job is to break their lines and give the colonists breathing room." Sergeant Tae-sung checked his heavy weapons. He was a massive man, quiet and methodical. "What about the ships in orbit? The The Times Fury Times will handle them, Jinwoo said. We focus on the ground forces. Corporal Minji Cho adjusted her medical pack. She was small but deadly, trained as both a combat medic and a close-quarters specialist. What if there are civilian casualties? Then we save them, Jinwoo said simply. That's what we do. The 4 strike corvettes launched from the Times Soul's Fury Asterisk. Small, fast ships, designed for atmospheric insertion. They accelerated toward Vec Prime at speeds that would have killed unaugmented humans. On the planet, Kang Dae watched his timer count down. 15 minutes left. The shields were at 20% power. The Ravagers were massing for a final push. Then, something appeared in the sky. 4 bright streaks, burning through the atmosphere at impossible angles. The corvettes skipped off the upper atmosphere, like stones on water, using the planet's gravity to slingshot around the Ravager blockade. The Ravager ships tried to intercept, but the corvettes were too fast, too maneuverable. They dove straight down through the enemy formation, shields blazing, and headed for the surface. Ambassador Thelvas watched from the command center. 4 small ships? Against all of this? What can they possibly do? Watch, Kang Dae said. He'd served in the Earth Defense Force. He knew what was coming. The corvettes reached the surface and deployed drop pods. 60 armored pods launched like meteors, slamming into the ground behind Ravager lines. The impact craters smoked as the hatches blew open with explosive charges. Strike Squad Alpha emerged first. 15 humans in black armor, carrying enough weapons to equip a small army. They moved with perfect coordination, spreading out into combat formation. A Ravager patrol spotted them and laughed. 15 humans against hundreds? Easy prey. They stopped laughing when the humans opened fire. The strike squads moved like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. They used cover perfectly, communicated without speaking, and anticipated enemy moves before they happened. Every shot hit its target. Every grenade landed exactly where it needed to be. Lieutenant Sora Han led her team through the colony's industrial sector. She looked at the massive fuel tanks, the mining equipment, the industrial vehicles. This whole place is a weapon if you know how to use it, she said. She placed charges on a fuel line, set the timer, and moved on. 30 seconds later, the explosion sent a fireball 200 feet into the air, cutting off a Ravager advance. Sergeant Tae-sung found a good position on top of a building. He set up his heavy machine gun and started firing. The weapon roared, sending streams of bullets into the Ravager formations. They tried to advance, but Tae-sung cut them down with mechanical precision. He didn't waste bullets, didn't miss, just kept firing with cold efficiency. Corporal Minji Cho heard screaming from a collapsed building. Civilians were trapped inside. She signaled her team, and they moved to the building under heavy fire. Ravagers tried to stop them, but Minji was faster. She dropped 3 enemies with her sidearm in 3 seconds, then helped pull wounded colonists from the rubble. One of them was a Krill warrior, badly injured. Minji treated his wounds while bullets flew overhead. "You came back for us?" the Krill asked in shock. "Of course," Minji said. "Now hold still so I can fix this." Strike Commander Jinwoo moved through the western sector like a ghost. His squad eliminated Ravager positions, one by one, silent and deadly. When the enemy tried to flank, they found Beta Squad already waiting for them. When they tried to retreat, Gamma Squad cut off their escape. The Ravager commander watched his forces collapse in confusion. How were 60 humans everywhere at once? How did they know every move he made? Jinwoo had studied every recorded battle the Ravagers had ever fought. He knew their tactics, their weaknesses, their patterns. He knew that they relied on brute force and intimidation. They didn't expect enemies who could think faster and adapt quicker. Dr. Yuna Park watched the battle from the command center. She was a scientist, trained to observe and analyze. What she saw amazed her. "They're not just fighting," she said. "They're using the Ravagers' own aggression against them. Every time the enemy commits to an attack, the humans redirect it into a trap." Captain Kang Dae smiled. "That's human warfare. We've been fighting each other for thousands of years. We learned from every mistake, every defeat, every victory. We made war into a science. The human civilians in the colony felt new courage. If 60 soldiers could do this, what could they do? Kang Day organized them into teams. They grabbed weapons and joined the counterattack. The Ravagers began to panic. They were brutal fighters, feared across the galaxy. But panic was something they gave to others, not something they felt. Yet here they were, falling back in disorder, their formations breaking. Commander Vrex and his Krill warriors rallied and pushed forward alongside the humans. The Krill had thought they knew what warriors looked like. Now they understood they had been amateurs. Strike Commander Jin Woo stood in the center of the battle and opened a channel to all defenders. Vec Prime. This is Strike Commander Jin Woo. Ground forces are routed. Repeat, ground forces are falling back. Hold your positions and stay sharp. But then his communication officer gave him bad news. The Ravager fleet in orbit was powering up their main weapons. If they couldn't take the colony, they would destroy it from space. Jin Woo looked up at the sky where the massive ships hung like dark clouds. They had won the ground battle. But the war wasn't over yet. Major Nari Huang watched the Ravager fleet from her command chair, aboard the Time's Soul's Fury *. 12 warships, each one bigger than her carrier. Their weapons were charging, gathering energy to turn Vec Prime into burning glass. Major, they're targeting the colony, her weapons officer said, firing in 3 minutes. Nari made her decision in seconds. She'd made many hard choices in her 20 years of service. But this was the easiest one yet. Drop stealth. All power to engines and shields. Broadcast on all frequencies. The Time's Soul's Fury Times appeared on every sensor in the system. A human carrier emerging from the shadows like an angry ghost. Nari took the microphone herself. Ravager Fleet, this is Major Nari Huang of the Earth Defense Force carrier Time's Soul's Fury *. You want the colony? Go through us first, the Ravager commander broadcast back. His voice was full of contempt. One carrier against our fleet? You humans are as stupid as you are weak. We will crush you. Then destroy your colony. You're welcome to try, Nari said calmly. Then she cut the transmission and looked at her crew. Launch all fighters. I want every bomber, every interceptor, everything that can fly in space right now. The carrier's launch bays opened. 120 small craft poured out like angry wasps from a disturbed hive. They were tiny compared to the Ravager warships, barely visible on sensors. The Ravagers laughed. What could small fighters do against capital ships? They found out quickly. Captain Hyun Lee led Fighter Squadron 1. He was young and cocky, with reflexes that bordered on superhuman. His fighters screamed through space, dodging weapons fire that should have vaporized him. This is Hyun Lee to all fighters. Remember your training. We're mosquitoes. They're elephants. We don't fight fair. The human fighters swarmed the Ravager fleet. They didn't try to slug it out with the big ships. Instead, they targeted weapon systems, engine ports, sensor arrays. They flew patterns that confused targeting computers, used electronic warfare to jam communications, and generally made themselves as annoying as possible. The Ravager ships tried to swat them down, but for every fighter they destroyed, 2 more appeared from different angles. The humans flew with precision and practiced chaos, following plans that adapted every second. A bomber squadron led by Lieutenant Yuri Ko approached a Ravager cruiser from below. The big ship couldn't angle its weapons down far enough. The bombers placed their explosives on the hull, then scattered before detonating them. The cruiser's belly split open, venting atmosphere and debris. 1 down, 11 to go. Yuri reported calmly. The Time's Soul's Fury Times itself entered the battle. Nari used the planet's gravity well to slingshot around Vec Prime, building up speed. The carrier emerged from behind the planet at an angle the Ravagers didn't expect, firing full broadsides into their formation. The Ravager admiral tried to reorganize his fleet, but the humans had already hacked into their communications. False orders went out, causing ships to maneuver into each other's firing lines. Paranoia spread as commanders stopped trusting their own sensors. "They're inside our systems," one Ravager captain screamed. On the ground, Strike Commander Jin Woo coordinated with the naval battle. His team used the colony's sensor arrays to feed targeting data to the ships above. "Major Huang, this is Jin Woo. Ravager battleship at coordinates 479er. Their port shield is down for maintenance." "Confirmed," Nari replied. "Squadron 6. You're up." 6 bombers dove on the battleship and delivered their payload into the exposed section. The ship shuddered and began to list. The battle became chaos. Human fighters darted between Ravager ships, the carrier maneuvered like a ship half its size, and the Ravagers found themselves fighting shadows and ghosts. Captain Hyun Lee's fighter took damage. His wing was shredded, his shields were gone, and his weapons were empty. A Ravager cruiser loomed ahead, its bridge visible through the viewport. Hyun made a choice. He aimed his crippled fighter at the bridge and pushed the throttle to maximum. "Hyun, eject!" His wingman screamed. "Can't. Ejection systems damaged. Tell my mom I flew well." The fighter crashed into the cruiser's bridge at full speed. The explosion was massive, and the cruiser spun out of control. Nari watched it happen and felt her heart clench. Too many good people died in wars. But Hyun's sacrifice took out one of the biggest enemy ships. "All units, target the flagship," she ordered. "Pour everything we have into it." The human forces concentrated their fire. Fighters, bombers, and the carrier itself hammered the Ravager flagship with missiles, lasers, and kinetic rounds. The ship's shields flickered and failed. Hull plates cracked and buckled. The Ravager admiral realized with shock that he was losing. His fleet, his pride, his reputation, all crumbling against one human carrier and its complement of small craft. "All ships, retreat," he ordered. "Negative," Nari broadcast on the Ravager command frequency. "You came here for a fight. You're going to get one." Human fighters blocked escape routes. The carrier positioned itself to cut off the most likely retreat vectors. The Ravagers were trapped. One by one, their ships were disabled or destroyed. Some tried to surrender, but their own crews mutinied, preferring death to the shame of defeat. It was brutal and efficient. The last Ravager ship, the flagship, hung damaged in space. Its weapons were gone, its engines dead, its shields collapsed. The admiral broadcast a surrender. "We yield, we surrender, stop firing." Nari held up her hand, and the human forces ceased fire. Not because she trusted the Ravagers, but because it was the right thing to do. "This is Major Huang. Ravager forces are to power down all systems and prepare to be boarded. Any hostile action will result in immediate destruction. Do you understand?" "We understand," the admiral said, his voice bitter with defeat. On the planet below, the colonists watched the battle end. Ambassador Thelva stared at the screens in disbelief. "One carrier," he whispered. "One carrier defeated 12 warships." Dr. Unipark smiled. "Not just one carrier. One carrier with a crew that refused to lose." Strike Commander Jin Woo received the victory report and allowed himself a small smile. His teams had secured the ground, and the fleet had won in space. It should have been over. Then his communication officer's face went pale. "Commander, we're receiving new intelligence from the captured Ravager systems. This wasn't their main fleet. It was a forward scouting group." Jin Woo felt his blood run cold. "How big is their main fleet?" Jin Woo. "Over 100 ships, sir, and they're 3 days away." The command center went silent. They had just fought desperately against 12 ships and barely won. Now they faced 100. Kangdae looked at Jin Woo. "What do we do?" Jin Woo straightened his shoulders. He'd faced impossible odds before. "We prepare. We dig in. And we hold until reinforcements arrive." "What reinforcements?" Ambassador Thelvas asked. "The nearest human battle fleet is weeks away." "Then we hold for weeks," Jin Woo said simply. "That's what humans do." Major Nari Huang's voice came through the communicator. Ground forces. This is times Sol's Fury asterisk. We've already sent word to Earth. A battle fleet is being dispatched, but it's 5 days out. Can you hold for 5 days? Jin Woo looked at the tired, battered defenders around him. Humans, Krill, Centaurians, and others. They'd just survived the impossible. We can hold, he said with absolute certainty. We will hold. The colony had 72 hours before the main Ravager armada arrived. 72 hours to turn a damaged mining settlement into a fortress that could withstand 100 warships. The council met again in the command center. This time, the mood was different. They had seen what humans could do when pushed to the edge. We should evacuate, one representative said. Get everyone on transports and scatter before they arrive. No, Captain Kang Dae said firmly. This colony is worth defending. We stay and fight. You can't be serious, Ambassador Thelvas said. 60 soldiers and 1 carrier held off 12 ships. But 100? That's suicide. Strike Commander Jin Woo stepped forward. His armor was still scorched from battle, but his eyes were clear and determined. Major Huang has already called for reinforcements. An Earth battle fleet is 5 days away. We just need to hold for 5 days. The Ravagers arrive in 3 days, Thelvas pointed out. Then we hold for 2 days against impossible odds, Jinwoo said. We've done it before. We'll do it again. Something shifted in the room. Commander Vrex, the Krill warrior, stood up. His species were natural fighters, but they had lost their edge over generations of peace. Watching the humans fight had rekindled something in them. The Krill will stay, Vrex declared. You humans have reminded us what it means to be warriors. We will fight beside you. Ambassador Thelvas looked around the room. Other representatives were nodding. The humans had shown them something precious. That courage could overcome fear. That determination could beat superior numbers. Very well, Thelvas said quietly. The Centaurians will stay as well. Perhaps we have forgotten that peace must sometimes be defended with strength. One by one, every species representative chose to stay. The colony would stand together. Jin Woo took command of the defense preparations. He divided the colony into sectors, assigned teams, and started building fortifications. The strike squads trained the civilian defenders in basic tactics. Lieutenant Sora Han gathered the engineers, including Hana Kim. We need to turn this colony into a death trap, she said cheerfully. Who wants to blow things up? Hana grinned. She'd kept the shields running during the battle through sheer will and technical skill. Now she could put that creativity to offensive use. They rigged explosives throughout the outer sectors. They turned mining lasers into weapons. They programmed construction equipment to respond to remote commands. Every building, every street, every tunnel became a potential ambush point. Sergeant Tae Sung set up defensive positions with overlapping fields of fire. He showed the militia fighters how to work in teams, how to use cover, how to make every shot count. The big man didn't talk much, but when he did, people listened. Don't be heroes, he told them. Stay alive. A living fighter can keep fighting. A dead hero is just dead. Corporal Minji Cho organized the medical facilities. She trained civilians in basic first aid and set up triage points throughout the colony. She also placed weapons caches near the medical stations. We're healers, but we're also fighters, she told her team. Protect the wounded, but don't let the enemy walk over you to get them. Dr. Yuna Park contributed in an unexpected way. As a xenobiologist, she knew the local ecosystem better than anyone. She identified plants that produced toxic spores and guided teams to harvest them. She found insects that could be bred rapidly and released to disrupt enemy sensors. Nature is a weapon if you know how to use it, she explained to Captain Kang Dae. The Ravagers won't expect biological warfare from a mining colony. The Ravager prisoners were put to work repairing damaged buildings and defenses. They were kept under heavy guard, but even they seemed impressed by the preparations. One Ravager looked at Corporal Minji and asked, "Why do you fight so hard? Why not just run?" Minji checked the prisoners' restraints and answered simply, Because someone has to show the galaxy that some things are worth dying for. Major Nari Huang and the Time's Soul's Fury Time stayed in orbit, repairing battle damage and preparing for the next fight. The carrier had taken hits during the battle, but the crew worked around the clock to fix them. She also deployed the remaining fighters to set up a sensor network around the system. When the Ravagers arrived, the humans would know exactly where they were coming from. On the second day, something unexpected happened. Ships started arriving at HFY Prime. Not human ships, but civilian vessels from other colonies. Word had spread about the battle, about the humans who refused to surrender. A Centaurian merchant captain brought supplies and volunteers. "We heard what you did here. We want to help." A Krill transport arrived with weapons and ammunition. "Our homeworld sends these with honor," their captain said. "Show the Ravagers that warriors still exist." Even some of the species that had initially voted to surrender now sent aid. They had seen courage and wanted to be part of it. Ambassador Thelvas coordinated the supplies and volunteers. He had been a diplomat all his life, trained to seek peace through words. Now he was learning that sometimes words weren't enough. "I was wrong," he admitted to Kangde. "I thought survival was more important than freedom. You humans showed me that survival without freedom is just a slower death." The third day arrived. The defenses were as ready as they could be. Automated turrets covered every approach. Explosives waited to be triggered. Fighters were positioned in prepared spots. The shields were repaired and reinforced. Strike Commander Jin Woo walked through the colony and checked each position. He spoke with every squad leader, every team, making sure they knew the plan. He had fought in a dozen battles, but this one felt different. This one mattered. He found Dr. Yuna Park in her lab, still working on biological countermeasures. "You should rest," he told her. "So should you," she replied without looking up. "But we both know we won't." Jin Woo smiled. "When this is over, I'm sleeping for a week. When this is over, I'm writing a research paper about multi-species military cooperation. And then, sleeping for a month." The sensors detected them at hour 71. 106 Ravager warships dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. They were massive, heavily armed, and very angry. The Ravager Admiral broadcast a message to the colony. "This is Fleet Commander Gresh. You destroyed our forward scouts. You will pay for that insult. Surrender now, or we will kill every living being on that planet." Captain Kang Day took the transmission. "This is Captain Kang Day of HFY Prime Colony. You came to our home. You tried to enslave us. And you're surprised we fought back? Here's our answer. Come and take it." The Ravager fleet began its approach. Every defender in the colony checked their weapons and prepared for the fight of their lives. Jin Woo opened a channel to all positions. "All units. This is Strike Commander Jin Woo. They think they can break us with numbers. They think we'll panic and run. Show them what happens when humans decide to hold a line. Show them what courage looks like." The Ravager fleet entered orbit and began their bombardment. The shields held, but they wouldn't last long. Not against this much firepower. The battle for HFY Prime had begun. The bombardment was brutal. Over 100 Ravager warships hammered the colony's shields with everything they had. The energy barriers flickered under the assault, holding through Hana Kim's engineering brilliance and sheer stubborn determination. "Shields at 60%, Hana reported from her station. "I can keep them up for maybe 8 hours at this rate." Captain Kang Day did the math in his head. 8 hours until the shields failed. 5 days until the Earth fleet arrived. They needed a miracle. Or they needed to be very lucky. They got neither. Instead, they got something more reliable. Human stubbornness. Major Nari Huang and the Time's Soul's Fury Times engaged the Ravager fleet immediately. The carrier was outnumbered and outgunned. But Nari had advantages the enemy didn't expect. She knew every trick in the book, and she'd written a few new chapters herself. "Launch all fighters. Execute Plan Delta 7, she ordered. The human fighters scattered in seemingly random patterns, but each move was calculated. They baited Ravager ships into chasing them, then led them through debris fields and around the planet's moons. The Ravagers, eager for kills, followed, right into ambush positions where other fighters waited. Captain Hyun-Lee's replacement, a pilot named Jae-won, led a squadron against a Ravager battleship. They flew so close to the hull that the big ship's point defense systems couldn't track them. They placed magnetic charges on critical systems and scattered before detonating them. The battleship's engines exploded, sending it spiraling into another Ravager ship. Both vessels collided and broke apart. 2 for 1 special, J1 reported. Who wants next? On the ground, the Ravager landing forces approached in massive numbers, thousands of soldiers in drop pods and assault shuttles. They expected resistance, but nothing like what they encountered. Lieutenant Sora Han triggered the first trap. A mining laser, reprogrammed and amplified, cut through an entire platoon of Ravager soldiers. Then the ground beneath them exploded as buried charges detonated. "Welcome to Vec Prime," Sora said cheerfully. "We've prepared a special greeting for you." Sergeant Tae Sung's defensive positions opened fire with coordinated precision. The militia fighters, trained in human tactics, worked in teams to maximize their effectiveness. They hit hard, then fell back to prepared positions, forcing the Ravagers to advance into kill zones. Commander Vrex and the Krill warriors fought with renewed purpose. They had learned from watching the humans. Combining their natural combat abilities with human tactical thinking, they became something the galaxy had never seen: Krill warriors with discipline and strategy. The Ravagers pushed forward anyway. They had numbers, armor, and weapons. They were used to winning through sheer mass and violence. But every street they took cost them dearly. Every building they captured was booby-trapped. Every victory was hollow. Dr. Yuna Park released her biological countermeasures. Clouds of spores filled the air, interfering with Ravager sensors and causing respiratory problems. Swarms of local insects, attracted by pheromones she'd synthesized, plagued the enemy forces. "They came to our planet," she said to Corporal Minji. Time they met the locals. The battle raged for hours. The defenders gave ground slowly, making the Ravagers pay for every meter. Strike Commander Jinwoo moved between positions, reinforcing weak points and exploiting enemy mistakes. He found himself face to face with a Ravager war chief, a massive creature covered in battle scars. The war chief laughed at the human's smaller size. "You think you can stop us, little human?" Jinwoo's response was to shoot the war chief in the knee, then strike him across the jaw as he fell. The war chief went down hard. "Size doesn't matter when you know where to hit," Jinwoo said, then moved to the next fight. In space, Major Nari Huang pulled off a maneuver that should have been impossible. She used the planet's gravity and the moon's orbital path to slingshot, the times Sol's Fury times, through the Ravager formation at incredible speed, firing broadsides the entire time. 3 Ravager ships were crippled before they could react. The carrier emerged on the other side of the formation, shields blazing but intact. "Again," Nari ordered. Her crew thought she was crazy, but they trusted her completely. They executed the maneuver again, and again, each time doing terrible damage to the enemy fleet. The Ravager admiral realized he was losing ships faster than he expected. These humans were supposed to be easy prey. Instead, they were fighting like demons. "Commit all forces," he ordered. "Crush them now." The Ravagers threw everything at the colony. The shields failed under the massive bombardment. The outer districts fell. The defenders pulled back to the central sectors, fighting every step of the way. Captain Kangdae rallied the civilian fighters. "This is our home. Every building, every street, every rock on this planet is worth defending. Make them bleed for it." The civilians, inspired by his words and by the humans' refusal to give up, fought with desperation and courage. Ambassador Thelvas found himself holding a rifle, something he'd never done before. A Ravager soldier charged at him, and the diplomat pulled the trigger. The soldier fell. "For peace," Thelvas whispered. "I do this for peace." The battle reached its most desperate point. The shields were gone. The outer defenses were breached, and the Ravagers were pressing into the heart of the colony. Strike Commander Jinwoo gathered his squads for what might be their last stand. Then every sensor in the system lit up. Ships were dropping out of hyperspace. Not 1 or 2, but dozens. An entire Earth Defense Force battle fleet, arriving 2 days early. The lead battleship was the Times Incheon Asterisk, a massive vessel bristling with weapons. Its captain broadcast on all frequencies. "This is Admiral Park Sung of EDF Battle Group 7. You are engaging a human-protected colony. Stand down immediately, or be destroyed." The Ravager Admiral stared at his sensors. He'd expected the Earth fleet in 2 more days. How were they here now? The answer was simple. When the call came that humans were in danger, the entire fleet had pushed their engines beyond safe limits, risking destruction to arrive in time, because that's what humans did for their own. The Earth fleet engaged the Ravager Armada with overwhelming force. Fresh ships with full weapons and shields against battered Ravager vessels that had been fighting for hours. It wasn't a battle. It was an execution. The Ravager Admiral tried to flee, but human cruisers blocked his escape. One by one, his ships were disabled or destroyed. Some surrendered. Most fought to the bitter end. On the ground, the Ravager forces broke and ran when they realized their fleet was being destroyed. Strike squads hunted them down, showing no mercy to those who had come to enslave innocents. The battle ended after 6 brutal hours. The Ravager Armada was destroyed. The ground forces were captured or killed. Vec Prime was saved. The cost had been high. 40 of Jinwoo's 60 strike operators were dead or wounded. The Times Soul's Fury Times was barely operational. Hundreds of colonists had died defending their home, but they had won. Captain Kang Dae stood in the ruins of the central square and looked at the people around him, humans, Krill, Centaurians, and others. They had fought together, bled together, and survived together. Admiral Park Sung came down to the surface to meet with the defenders. He found Strike Commander Jin Woo in a medical station, being treated for injuries. "You held them," the Admiral said. "Against impossible odds, you held them." "We're humans," Jin Woo replied simply. "It's what we do." The Admiral handed him a datapad. "You should see this. 47 colonies have requested human protection details in the last 12 hours. Word has spread about what happened here." Croesus. Jin Woo read through the requests and felt the weight of responsibility. The galaxy was watching. They had seen what humans could do. What humans would do to protect those under their care. "Are we ready for that responsibility?" Corporal Minji asked from the next bed, her arm in a sling. Jin Woo looked out the window at the colony being rebuilt. He saw humans working alongside Krill warriors, Centaurian engineers, and a dozen other species, all united by the experience of standing together against overwhelming odds. "We don't have a choice," he said. "Someone has to show the galaxy that some things are worth fighting for. That freedom matters. That courage can overcome fear. If not us, then who?" Dr. Yuna Park, overhearing the conversation, smiled. "I'm writing a paper about this. About how different species can work together when they have proper leadership and motivation. Make sure you mention the stubbornness," Hana Kim added from across the room. "That's the real human superpower." Ambassador Thelvas entered the medical station. He looked different now, harder somehow. The diplomat had become a warrior, at least for one battle. "The council has voted," he said. "Vec Prime will be officially renamed Unity Station. And we're requesting a permanent human military presence." Kang Dae smiled. "Granted. I'm not going anywhere anyway." The galaxy had learned an important lesson at Unity Station. Humans could be peaceful, diplomatic, and friendly, but push them too far. Threaten those under their protection, and they would show you why Earth had survived 10,000 years of warfare. The Ravagers were broken as a fighting force, their reputation shattered. The story spread across known space, an entire armada destroyed by a handful of humans who refused to surrender. And everywhere humans went after that, people looked at them with new respect. Not just as traders or diplomats, but as protectors and warriors. Strike Commander Jin Woo recovered from his wounds and returned to duty. His first assignment: training multi-species defense forces at Unity Station. teaching others the lessons humanity had learned through blood and sacrifice. The era of humanity standing alone was over. Now, they stood with others, protecting those who couldn't protect themselves, showing the galaxy what it meant to have courage, because that's what humans do.